Hello, future journalists of America. I'm Nick Wagoner of ESPN out here in San Francisco. Before I get started, I just want to say thanks to you guys for listening to me today. I will try not to ramble too much. I know this is just going to be me talking at you for a few minutes here, so hopefully I can keep that in check. I also want you all to know that I'll be sure to get my email address to Ted Bryant. And if you have any questions, any follow-ups, if you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me some questions at any time. I'll be gone where it's kind of a critical time for a football writer right now in terms of vacation. So I'll be gone for a little while, but I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Also, thanks to Ted for having me on. Ted's a good man, has been around a lot of sports, knows what he's talking about. So be sure to listen to him. I'm sure you'll walk out of there with a little more knowledge than you went in there with. Ted also sent me a list of questions. I'm just going to go through them, try to knock them out as best I can. The first thing he asked me is, what do I wish I knew then when I was in your shoes that I know now? And really the answer is simple. It's versatility. You look at the way this business has gone. Everything is about how much can you do? What can you do for me? And I think that it specifically go back to when I was in college at Mizzou. You had to choose. It was, you can be a newspaper reporter, you can be a magazine reporter, you can be a television reporter, you do a photojournalist, you can be in advertising. You had to kind of pick between those. And I know that it's evolved since then, and now they have something called convergence. And my advice to you would be to choose convergence. I don't even know if it's a choice anymore, but choose convergence, because this to me is the most important thing about where this business is headed. And as I sit here right now, this is a good example. I'm talking to you in my living room. You can see my Sopranos picture, my Mizzou photo in the background. I'm on my phone. This is a phone camera that's doing this on a tripod, and I have my microphone here. Well, let me tell you, this isn't the first time I've done this. I've been on SportsCenter with this view. I've been on Outside the Lines with this view. Part of my job is to be able to go on TV anywhere at any time. And when news breaks, sometimes that means doing it from your living room. And so I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't learned those skills. And I had to learn them over the last 5-6 years as opposed to learning them in college. But the sooner you can learn those things, get your hands on those abilities, the more you can do. You want to be able to be a reporter first and foremost, of course, but you want to be a writer. You want to be able to talk on television. You want to be able to talk on the radio. You want to be able to take pictures because social media is a part of that. You want to be able to do all those things. You want to be able to produce television. That's basically what we're doing here, is producing a television show. So all those things kind of have to go into a pot, stir them up, and the better it tastes when it comes out, the better you're going to be at your job. The next question Ted had was, what is my favorite moment from my career? And like I said, I've been covering the NFL now for about 15 years, 13 of those covering the Rams, and then now 2 with the Niners. And it's been a lot of bad football. So I always tell my bosses that, yeah, I've covered bad football, but I've covered a lot of really important stories. And I don't know that I have one that's a favorite per se, but I think I take a lot of pride in the fact that I've done a lot of social issues that kind of intertwine with football. And I'm a football writer first, yes, but I also have to do those things, and you have to manage them. And I feel like I've handled them well in a way that, doesn't leave a gray area. I think a lot of things have gotten covered from beginning to end, A to Z, and there's no missteps. And I go back to when Michael Sam was drafted by the Rams, certainly the first openly gay player in the NFL. Huge story. All the unrest in Ferguson, kind of as that was tangential to the Rams. There were some teams that were misplaced, high school teams misplaced, that practiced with the Rams, and so there was an intersection there. And then you had the 5 players that put their hands up, don't shoot. Wide receiver Stedman Bailey was shot in an unfortunate incident around Thanksgiving. So a lot of big stories there. And then, of course, this past year, as you all could have guessed, I was all Colin Kaepernick all the time. It was the most important story in the NFL and the most important story in sports, really, in 2016, and I was right here at the forefront of it. No matter where you fit in politically or what you believe about any of that stuff that I just mentioned, it's our jobs as reporters and writers to keep that separate, to call it down the middle, to tell as many sides of the story as possible. And I've taken great pride in being able to do that. And I think that has kind of shown through my work. And I think it's kind of been the hallmark, if there is to be one, of my career to this point. I wouldn't mind covering a winning football team at one point, although I'm not sure I really know how to do it because it's been so long. But certainly that understanding of how to handle kind of sensitive topics, but really important topics, is something that I can't recommend enough. And I think it's important. I think it's why it's important for you as young journalists and those of you that want to go into sports writing to do some news writing, to get some experience doing that kind of stuff as well, because there's going to come a time where it's not going to just be all about sports or all about news. And so it kind of goes both ways in that regard as well. The next question Ted asked is, what was the most difficult challenge for me? And I don't know that there's been one in my career. There's been one moment. I mean, certainly I've had coaches and athletes scream at me about things I've written or said. That's just kind of part and parcel of what we do, though. I don't really take any of that personally or carry that around with me in any sort of a grudge or anything like that. I guess the hard part for me is the days, and I mean the many days when you see some of the things that are breaking down in the business, when it's layoffs in places and friends and colleagues are losing their jobs. That part's really hard because you know how talented they are, you know how hard they work, and you just believe that the journalism world gets to be a little bit worse of a place when those people aren't employed. And so I'm not naive enough to think it may never happen to me. Who knows? But I just think that's a really hard thing. But I also want to stress this to you guys as well. I live out here in the heart of Silicon Valley, tons of technology, tons of things going on. I think a lot of this stuff is cyclical as well. I think there's always going to be something new, and right now we may be in a little downturn where we're waiting for what that next big thing is, but I think there's always going to be a place for journalism. You're seeing that every day in our country right now, and so I just want to make sure that I stress to you guys, you're going to hear people say when you tell them you want to get into journalism, whether it's sports, news, whatever it is, you're going to hear a lot of people say, well, why would you want to do that? Look at all the trouble with newspapers. Look at all the trouble with magazines. Whatever it is, all over the place. But there's always going to be a place for good reporting. There's always going to be a place for good writing. And I cannot stress that to you guys enough. I think it's really important that you don't get discouraged. It's all about working hard and also doing, like I said, making sure you're as versatile as possible so that you can deliver content in as many ways as possible. Those are the things that are going to keep you going. The last thing Ted asked is, what is my approach with working with professional athletes? And I don't know that there's a magic bullet to this. It's just like dealing with people on a daily basis in anything you do. You always want to make sure that you're first and foremost trying to develop a relationship. And I don't mean trying to become friends with someone. This is what we do is not about trying to go grab beers with a guy after a game or whatever. It's about trying to get to know these guys so that they can open up and feel comfortable talking to you, and also so that you can write critical things and be negative about things that may be going on with them, but still have an established relationship where they understand your point of view. And I've had a number of issues over the years where coaches and players have gotten in my face about things. And the late, great Brian Burwell, one of the things he taught me when I was a young journalist coming up was always be there the next day. Always be in the locker room after you write something critical about someone, or at a coach's press conference after you write something critical about someone. And I think this applies to news and not just sports. It applies to everything. But give those people a chance, if they have a beef with something you've written or said, to say their piece. And the interesting thing about it is, a lot of times when you do that, you will end up in a much better place in terms of the relationship with that person, because you'll have someone who understands where you're coming from, and you can kind of gain their perspective, they can gain your perspective, you can get that middle ground, and so you can move forward and again, a lot of times come out of it with a better relationship. So that to me is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've ever received, and it's one that I'm happy to pass along right now, is whenever you have something, it's really easy to go in and write the happy story about the guy who scores 4 touchdowns, or did something great off the field, whatever it is. That stuff kind of is easy. The harder part is dealing with the road bumps and navigating those things when things get a little bit more difficult. And certainly with as much bad football as I've covered, there's been more of that than the good. But I hope, and I'd like to think that, and Ted may tell you otherwise because he was around for a couple years there when I was there covering the Rams. But you hope that you earn respect by being there every day, and by being that person who's willing to, even if I say something critical of you, to be there and you can talk to my face and we can have a conversation and be adults about it. So that's really one of the big things for me in dealing with professional athletes. The rest of the time, I think it's important to know that a lot of the sources that you're going to develop on your jobs are the people who aren't players, aren't athletes, because as you see, especially in the NFL, those things turn over very quickly. It's a lot of executives, it's coaches. Those are the types of things to me that are certainly the most important as reporters go, but obviously players can help as well. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel. I went way longer, I think, than Ted wanted me to. But thanks for listening to me again. I'll be sure to pass my email along to Ted. Ted can pass that out to you guys if anyone has any follow-up questions or would like to ask me anything moving forward. So thanks again for listening to me. I wish everybody good luck, and certainly if you are exploring colleges to go to study journalism, I cannot recommend anything but my beloved Mizzou Tigers. I had a great 4 years there. I learned a lot, and it's worked out pretty well for me. So best to y'all. Enjoy your summers. Take care.